These are comic book movies, based on iconic characters like Superman, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Wonder Woman. They're some of the most profitable films in cinema history. But some comic book movies never made it up and away. In fact, they were never made at all. Welcome to Explainiac. I'm Dan Casey, and today we're diving deep into 10 comic book movies that almost happened, but didn't. X-Men. Imagine a world where Hugh Jackman never played Wolverine. Well, for a brief moment in time, that nearly happened. Back in the early 90s, Stan Lee and comics writer Chris Claremont met with James Cameron to discuss making an X-Men movie that would be produced by Cameron, directed by Kathryn Bigelow, and star Bob Hoskins as Wolverine and Angela Bassett as Storm. According to Claremont, that movie died in the room when Stan Lee looked at James Cameron and said, "I hear you like Spider-Man," which led to another kind of development hell in which James Cameron's deeply weird Spidey movie also never got made. But at least we'll always have the Avatar sequels, which James Cameron has promised will, quote, make you shit yourself with your mouth wide open, end quote. That's a real quote and a real promise. The real 4DX experience is in your dockers. Green Lantern. Since time immemorial, mankind has looked to the stars and wondered, why can't anyone make a good Green Lantern movie?
I know, right?
It's a question that Warner Brothers was heavily mulling over back in 2004 when they tapped Triumph the Insult comic dog himself, Robert Smigel, to write a comedic version of Green Lantern starring Jack Black. Now, as you can imagine, very well-adjusted, normal DC fans were not at all furious about this online, especially once they learned that Black would be playing a new ring bearer named Judd Plato, a reality TV star who somehow just inherits Green Lantern's ring. I don't know about you guys, but honestly, that sounds way better than the version we got in 2011, so to all the haters out there, I say, release the Smigel cut! The Sandman. Neil Gaiman's 75-issue masterpiece about the Lord of Dreams and his alliterative siblings is as seemingly difficult to adapt as it is enjoyable to read, which is to say, very. In the late 90s, Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction collaborator Roger Avery gave it the old college try with Pirates of the Caribbean writers Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. Their script wound up going through several other drafts, with Neil Gaiman calling the final version, quote, not only the worst Sandman script I've ever seen, but quite easily the worst script I've ever read. Oh my God. Hi, police? I'd like to report a murder. In 2013, it was announced that David S. Goyer would be teaming up with Joseph Gordon-Levitt to make a Sandman movie, but much like my dream about flying a helicopter made out of licorice, it vanished into the ether. As it turns out, we're never going to get a Sandman movie because it's gonna be a Netflix series instead. Yeah, see? Sometimes these things do have a happy ending, unlike what happens to most of the characters in the Sandman, so. Doctor Strange. Now, speaking of Neil Gaiman, did you know that he and Guillermo del Toro almost made a Doctor Strange movie together back in 2007? Well, unfortunately, like most incredibly cool-sounding Guillermo del Toro projects, this one died on the rocky shores of the office of whatever Marvel exec said, nah. Now, I wonder if this was one of the 14,605 realities that Bimble Crunk Crumblesnoot saw back in Infinity War. Probably not. Justice League Dark. And speaking of stalled out Guillermo del Toro projects that I would knock over all of Kyle Hill's Funkos and move everything in his office 3 inches to the left if it would help this thing happen, Justice League Dark was gonna give Justice League's occult counterpart the feature film treatment as filtered through the lens of Guillermo del Toro. I mean, come on! But given that the last update that we heard about this was a brief blip during Warner Brothers and DC's 2017 Hall H panel at Comic-Con, well, we'd probably need John Constantine to commune with our spirits by the time it finally hits the big screen because we're gonna be long gone. This movie is dead as hell. Daredevil. Now I know, we already had the perfect Daredevil in Benjamin Affleck, but there was a brief shining moment in time where Joe Carnahan uploaded a glimpse of what his hard R-rated 1970s set take on The Man Without Fear would have looked like. The answer is pretty gritty and pretty damn good. Carnahan envisioned a trilogy of films according to an interview with Movie Pilot. I suggested a trilogy as follows: Daredevil 73, Daredevil 79, and Daredevil 85, where I was going to do a kind of cultural libretto and make the music of those eras as kind of a thematic arc. So the first one would be classic rock, the second one would be punk rock, and the third film would be new wave. Now, sadly, this never came to pass, and all we got were 3 seasons of increasingly elaborate and deadly hallway fights. Catwoman. Now, as we all know, Catwoman's defining traits are taking down evil skincare companies and playing the horniest game of basketball ever committed to film. Now, that must be the only logical explanation for why Tim Burton's Catwoman spin-off with Michelle Pfeiffer didn't land on its feet after her iconic turn in Batman Returns. Now, according to Den of Geek, the spin-off would have focused on an amnesiac Selena Kyle who goes to relax in Oasisburg, a fictional hybrid of Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Palm Springs that's run by superheroes who turn out to be not so super after all. But like so many old-timey locomotives coming to a screeching halt, this project ran out of steam and went back inside of Schrodinger's red box. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4. Tell me, do you wake up every night in a cold sweat, engaging your core to shoot upright, don't wake daddy style, because you're haunted by the specter of Sam Raimi's never-made Spider-Man 4? Well, it haunts Sam Raimi too. I think about it all the time, he told Yahoo Entertainment. It's hard not to, because each summer another Spider-Man film comes out. So when you have an unborn one, you can't help but think what might have been. In this case, it would have involved John Malkovich as the Vulture, Anne Hathaway as Felicia Hardy playing not the Black Cat but a female version of Vulture for some reason, and Bruce Campbell as Mysterio according to storyboards from Jeffrey Henderson. But hey, now that the multiverse is a real thing in the MCU, maybe, just maybe, we can see Tobey Maguire don the iconic suit and we can have one last pizza time.
Pizza time.
Toby Hooper's Spider-Man. Leave it to the smooth-brained geniuses over at Canon Films to have a potentially legendary cult classic on their hands, only to transform it into an even more embarrassing pile of garbage. Back in the 1980s, the schlockmeisters extraordinaire at Canon Films acquired the rights to Spider-Man. They knew nothing about it, only that it was popular and kids loved it. So naturally, they took the name literally and enlisted horror legend Toby Hooper to make a movie about a man who turns into a wretched man-spider hybrid creature. Sadly, it never came to pass, and the closest we got to a scary Spider-Man was seeing Peter Parker's dance moves in Spider-Man 3. Thanks. Why The Last Man? When it comes to announcing feature film adaptations of fan-favorite Vertigo comics only to have them die on the vine, then New Line Cinema and David S. Goyer are the world champions. They have the high score. I'm sorry. But in addition to Sandman, these two parties tried to bring Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerra's incredible Why the Last Man and its story of a deadly virus that wipes out all men on the planet save for one to the big screen, but, as you may have guessed by this point in the episode, ultimately failed. For a while, there were rumors that Shia LaBeouf was going to play Yorick and Alicia Keys would play Agent 355, but ultimately nothing happened, and it went through a series of writers and producers and directors until the rights reverted back to the original creators. And now, after many years and many false starts, it's going to be a TV series on FX, which through shows like Legion, they've proven they can handle truly bonkers sci-fi comic storytelling. No word on how they handle Capuchins though, only time will tell. But what do you think? Which of these movies do you wish actually got made? What's your pitch for a never-made superhero movie? Let me know in the comments below and give me a thumbs up while you're there. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please consider liking this channel and hitting that little notification bell so you never miss a new episode. And if you want even more comic book deep dives, be sure to check out past episodes, which you can watch right now wherever fine Nerdist videos are served. If you have suggestions for future episodes, be sure to leave them in the comments or tweet me directly at Dan Casey. This is an evolving process, and I want you to be a part of it. And remember, not everything in life can be explained, but for everything else, there's this show.